first, using get full text for each step is not a good practice. We have to make it dynamic so that it doesn't fail if there are n number of steps instead of 3. To make it dynamic, let's take the selectors from each and analyze them once. Copy it and take a notepad and make a list of all the selectors available. This was the step 1 selector, and then step 2 selector, then step 3 selector. As we just go through them, we can see there is only one attribute that is changing from step 1 to step 2. Okay. If we can take a variable that is incremented every time by 1, we can do all this task with a single get text activity, right? So why not do that? Let me take, what we will do right now is we'll delete all these 3, delete this, and delete. Okay, let it be. Okay, I'm saving that. The first step that I have to do is, what I will do is I will take this selector, whatever we have it into, let me capture that this particular selector using UI Explorer. Okay, I'm indicating that particular step. This is the selector that we have. We'll copy that. I will create a variable to which I can assign this particular selector, and this is the way how we can create a dynamic selector. I've given the name selector to it. Let's go to that, change this to string type, and then increase the scope of it. Once we are done with that, let's go to this, double quotations, and then enter this particular thing. Why is the error here? It's saying it should end with this. Let's take that into a single line. It's gone right now. And this particular thing available here, we should replace it with a variable which will be incremented every time by 1. So let's create a variable called counter, and the type of it will be int. The scope of it will be a sequence search for the recipe, and then increment. The default value will be 1. So let's replace that 1 with the variable that we have just created now. I'm deleting it, and then double quotations, double plus, and here we'll be sending a counter. Because counter is an int, we have to convert it to string. That's done. Okay, so the first time when we do this, it will be assigned a 1 value, so it will try to fetch the first step, and here we have to pass, instead of this we have to delete all this, save it, and then pass the above variable to it. Sorry, this is not the variable, we have to pass selector. Okay, so right now this is a dynamic selector. It is assigned to a variable, and then we are passing this variable to this, and the output of this, because it is not specific to any step, let's create method saying method and enter. Let's display method now, and let's see what it is displayed, what will be displayed, okay, when we run this particular program. Let's go back to it and set it to the initial position, and if I just try to run it once, So it has fetched the first item in the list. It has fetched the ingredients and it has fetched the step 1. Did you observe? Though we have not given any static value into it, we have passed a counter which will be 1. So this particular thing will be capable. It will look like this when it is run. Okay, so this will be passed to it. It was able to fetch the step 1, but the goal here is to fetch step 2 and step 3 too. To do that, we have to be incrementing the counter available to us, right? So let's take this and have counter equal to counter plus 1. This will increment the counter to 2 the next time. But if you just observe that here, what's happening is, you can just click on this to make the screen bigger. Okay, now the counter is 2, but it is existing, but it will exit and it will come down to message. There is no loop. We are not telling the robot to go to the beginning and then again assign this counter to this and then again fetch the values. To achieve that, we have to be using a do while. Let's drag this here. Here we are. Okay, and then pass this to this and then pass this here. So what's happening here is we have a dynamic selector in which the first time it will be the first step. So what we have to do is we have to copy this. Okay, so we have this selector, this will be passed on to this. So it is 1, so it will fetch this step 1. Once that is done, we'll be incrementing the counter and then we have to see if the step 2 exists, right? So for that we have to use element exist, because if there is no step 2 and we are trying to fetch it, there will be the possibility of error is there. But what is the selector that we have to pass to this? It should be, if I just take this, it should be the incremented selector, right? So we are checking for the next step, so it should be the incremented selector. Though here selector is 1, the counter is 1, here it will be 2, so we are passing the incremented selector to this particular thing. So let me go here and pass this selector here, selector. Okay, so this is the incremented selector which is available over here, and go and create a flag to it. Next step flag, create it. Hope you understand what's happening inside this. First thing that we have did is we have taken the selector to which we are passing a variable which is initialized to 1. Okay, so this time the selector belongs to the first step. We have entered the do while loop. This time we are trying to pass this selector to this, so it will look for the step 1 and will fetch that value. Because we are done with fetching the value of first step, we have incremented it and we are again forming the selector so that we can search for the next available step 2 if it is there. Okay, let's pass the output of this to this while loop, do while loop. Next, I think the variable is not available here because we have to increase the scope of it. There is the scope and now it should be available. Okay, so this will be looped, okay, enough time till this turns false. Okay, because if it is available, then it is true, so it will go to here, it will try to execute all these steps. But here there is a problem. Whenever we go right here, we have to be saving this particular value every time, right? To do that, what we have to do is, let's take a value called assign, okay, and we have to initialize it. So we already have a variable of generic type, okay, and let's take a final method, okay, in which we'll be saving the step 1, step 2 and step 3 until till the last step we have for that particular recipe. Let me take it as final step. In final step, what I'm saving is final step plus method. What exactly is happening here? If we just see, let's initialize this particular thing with empty. Once that is done, I will show you what happens. In the first iteration, if I just clear this, final method equal to final method plus method. So in the first loop, what will happen is, in the final method equal to, what is the value of final method that we know? It's empty for the first time, right? So that is what will happen. This is the empty string plus, in the method we will have the value coming out from this particular get full text. So now it will be step 1. Okay, in the next iteration, as we go from this to again get full text, this time final method equal to, because final method value is step 1 instead of null, so it's step 1 plus step 2. Okay, so this is how the values will be appended every time we loop through this. But okay, they will be appended in the same line. If just run it, okay, once, and you will find the differences between them. So going forward, at the final, let's display the final method once. Because this is a little complex, I will try to debug it for you. I'm placing a debug here, a breakpoint. There's a breakpoint. Let me take this back to the initial state and debug this particular file once. So it is trying to launch the page. It has launched this particular page. It is trying to get the ingredients, and then we have reached the breakpoint. Let me click on step into. So as you can see, there's a value in this particular selector. This is the value. Let me close this and paste this. So this time the IDX is 1, so it will try to fetch the first one. It's going and is trying to get the value, and in the final method it has assigned the value that it has fetched from the screen. Now where's the final? So it's right now empty. If I just click on step into, you will see there must be something else here. In the final text, right now we have this step 1. Just copy this and paste it here. So this is the value available in final method now. Okay, now the counter has become 2. It is going, it has incremented, and if I just go to the selector, the value of selector has actually changed. So it is 2 right now. If I just go here and paste it, it's 2. Okay, it is, so this particular selector will be passed to this, and if there is a step 2 available, this particular sequence will be repeated. So see, is again into sequence and is trying to get the value of that, and now it will be assigned to final method. If I just go to final and fetch this value and paste it here, it should contain step 1 and step 2. Okay. Similarly, if I just step into this, it is going and is finding for the third step. It is, if it is available, because we know it's available, it is again going, it is fetching the values from this, and this time it is not going from this particular step because it is unable to find the current available selector. If I just copy this, you can find it's step 4. It is the counter is incremented to 4 and it has been passed to this, but it can't find it on the screen. The timeout to this is a default timeout 30 seconds, so it will wait till the time is out, and because it can't find it, it will come out of the loop. So that is what is happening. Because it will be turned to false, it will come out of the loop, and here we are. If we just try to display it, step 1, step 2 and step 3. So it was able to fetch all these steps dynamically. But what we have observed is all the results that we have got are in the same line. Just to take that off and to separate those values by at least one separate new line, just go to this particular thing where we are appending the text every time. Here's the line. Just add 1 plus and VBLF. It will try to introduce a new line after every step being fetched. Okay, so what I will do is just go to this, cut it and paste it. Sometimes we get a validation error because of cache errors. You can just cut and paste it. Okay, fine. With that, I think we are done. I will try to run it once again. This whole process without debug mode, I'm running it. So it was unable to type this particular apple because I was just moving the mouse around. Let's cancel this and run it once again. I forgot to put that into the initial state. Okay, there's the initial state, and let's try to run it once. Run file. Okay, it has clicked apple. Just trying to fetch the first item from that, and now it should be navigating to that. Now once it's done, it will fetching the ingredients. Next, in the background, it's fetching step 1, step 2 and step 3. So here are the steps: step 1, step 2 and step 3. Congratulations, you have learned how to handle the dynamic selectors. in this particular lecture.